I've unleashed a beast.
Illustrations by me.
So lately, I've been experimenting with other watercolor paint, and especially the one that gets me in trouble. We're going to call that one Black Days from now on, because if I say the other word, people yell at me. I don't like that. So it doesn't matter. The thing that I want to talk about today, I've been looking at the QoR watercolor since I had that 6 set. I enjoyed it. So I went and I got some more. They're expensive. They're like, you pay the same exact amount. That doesn't matter. You pay the same amount if you get a tube of theirs or a tube of someone else's. The difference is they're only 12 milliliters, and I think the other ones are more like 15 milliliters normally. At least Daniel Smith is. You can get some really inexpensive ones that are like 24 and 27 milliliters of some of the other brands, but normal paint is about 15 milliliters. These are 12 for the same price. So they're more expensive, I get it. I'm not saying anyone needs to go down that road, but I did. And the other thing I want to mention about them is they spread incredibly quickly around water, through the water. And that's not a sign. I've heard people say, oh, that's a sign of a quality watercolor. No, it's not. Holbein watercolor is very quality, and they don't move in water, hardly. They just stay pretty much where they are. And that's, a lot of people like that. And if you're someone who has to paint a lot of detail, you want that. You want a paint that when you put it there, it stays there. It's just a different thing. So they use the Aquazole, and the Aquazole gives them some quicker movement. It's a synthetic oxgall. So the oxgall was usually added to, or used as a medium, or added to watercolor to make it move through the water a little bit quicker. This they use, it's a synthetic version. It's not real, but they use it. I mean, it's a real thing. You know what I mean. So to be fully transparent about this whole thing, I am going to be doing some paint reviews and some swatching every once in a while. Every few videos I'm going to pepper them in. And the reason why is not for any other reason other than I enjoy the swatching, you enjoy the swatching, and it does get a lot more views than anything else I do. So I do want the channel to grow, and I'm going to do those types of videos to grow, but I wouldn't do them if I didn't enjoy them myself, and if you didn't enjoy them. But since you tell me you like them, and I like them, we're going to do that. Once in a while, we'll go into the swatching, and we'll see what happens there. But I'm not trying to push all these different brands in your face. I'm just doing it because I enjoy it. I'm showing you what's out there, but I'm enjoying it. I love color. I like to put paint down and look at it. It's fun. Sometimes it's more fun than creating art. Sometimes when I sit down to create, all I do is sit down and just put colors on a page. I'm like, let's mix this one with that one and see what we get. Or let's just put a whole page of that one color and look at all the granulation. Alright, so today I'm going to swatch two things. I'm going to swatch all of the colors that I have that are QoR, that I currently own. And then I'm going to share with you my goal of what I want to get down to and figure out what I actually am going to use and put that into another palette, and I'll show you that. Alright, let's get into it. Alright, so I am a little bit closer than I normally am, but I'll back out so you can see the whole card when I'm done. I just wanted to get you a little bit closer because I think it's satisfying to see the color go down on here. Okay, so first off, I did buy this little sketching set, this little tin. It's the Urban set, and I want to just say this. I may have said this in another video, but the Golden people are amazing. They're just marketers. That's what they are. They're marketers. They have these sets, and they have the little box that opens. You can see what the inside of the palette looks like. There's the box it comes in. Again, this is garbage. Don't ever listen. But it's closer than some. I will say that. You can obviously see that color is not that color. This is really not they're not right. You don't ever look at the colors that they put on boxes or any kind of propaganda material here. It's not even, I don't think it's that close, but it's somewhat close, but it's not right. But this little tin is amazing. You have the mixing wells are all in these little dots. You also have some mixing area here, but what I'm going to do is take all these out, put in some full pans. I can fit 14 full pans in here. That's a lot. That's a lot of space in here compared to what I usually use here. This is only 13 in this pan here. It's 13 spaces, and of course I don't have anything in there right now. But what I want to do is fit everything, all 14, into here. I mean, it's a lot thinner. It's a lot thinner. This is much smaller of a tin than any other tin I've seen. It's a little fatter, but it's smaller. So I'm happy about that. It's a wonderful tin. I want to use this as my travel set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out which, after I use all of the colors that I'm going to do here, I'm going to figure out what colors I want to put in here. Right now I'm using a bigger set in my other tin. This is it now, and I'm going to try and I'll show you more later what this all is. But for now I'm just going to swatch these out and show you these, and then we'll get into the actual sets. Alright, so we're going to start off with this one here. Now, you can pronounce that if you'd like. I just call it Benzie Yellow. It's a Benzie color. That's what I call it. You can call it whatever you want. I don't really care. So this is the Benzie Yellow. It's a very bright, what would you call, like a lemon yellow? Kind of. It's kind of like a lemon yellow. I would say that. I have no problem saying that. And then I want to go ahead and just put a little bit of water down here. And we're going to watch it shoot around in the water. It immediately takes over that whole spot. That's just what it does. And so that's something that I really enjoy about these. Now, what we're talking about here, I'm going to go through them. I'll go through them as I do them this time instead of going back through them. So we have the Benzie Yellow, PY 154. That's what it is. It's that Benzie. They just took the pigment name and called it that. That's when people do that. A lot of people call it Azo Yellow, or they call it different things. Some people call it like a cadmium hue or something. But anyway, it's Benzie Yellow. That's what it is. PY 154. It's okay. So let me explain these blocks with these. If you have the line through it, they say semi-transparent. If you have the block half colored in, it's semi-opaque. You can pick whatever you want. I don't care what you pick. I'm saying whether it has that line through it or whether it has a half-colored square, it's semi-transparent either way. There's no difference in my opinion. It just depends on whether you're a glass half empty or glass half full kind of person. I'm saying it's semi-transparent or semi-opaque is the same thing. I don't know. I've never been able to tell the difference between those two things. You can't have that many different degrees of that. Either it's transparent, or it's opaque, or it's semi, which means it's a little opaque, but not entirely. I get that. But I'm just going to say semi-transparent here. I'm going to say this is semi-transparent too, even though that's not how they classify it. Don't worry about that. So it's slightly staining or semi-staining, which means you could lift it if you wanted to. And it's got a 1 for a light fast, so it's a very light fast color. It's got a slightly warm tint to it. It's not entirely a lemon yellow. It all from like here down it is. But when you're up here in this little spot up here, it's a little bit of a warmth to it. It's still not for me. I don't usually use that color. All right, let's look at the Naples yellow. Now I've already gone through the Naples yellow. I did not get that wet at all. All right, so I've gone through the Naples yellow here before, and it's that, you know, they want to call it semi-opaque, whatever. It's semi-transparent. It definitely has some opaqueness to it because it's like a yellow ochre almost, and that's what it is. It's a little bit more gold than a yellow ochre. We'll go into that, but it's not. It ended up not being one of my favorite colors, and I've replaced it on my palette, but. It does, you know, it shoots around. As soon as you do that, you get that halo effect all the way to the edge of the water. It shoots right through it. It's a nice, wonderful color. I like it. I enjoy it. It's just a little bit too much of a tint of gold to it for me. I like it a little bit less gold. Okay, so you have this PBK7, which is the lamp black. And think of that, lamp black means soot. Have you ever burned a candle in a lamp and you get the soot? It's kind of like that. It's soot. It's carbon black. And then you have the PBR 24, which is the chrome antimony titanate. Now, when it says chrome and it says titanate, you immediately think opaqueness because anything that's like a chromium, anything, chromium oxide, anything, it always is a little bit more opaque. Then you take the titanate, think of titanium white, and then you automatically think of, okay, yeah, I understand that. That's also going to be a little opaque. Now the PW4 is a zinc oxide white. So the zinc oxide is a little bit less opaque than a titanium white. It's just a little different. It has more of a warm, I think it has more of a warm color to it. And if you used a pure zinc white and then you put it down into a color, it would just make it a little bit more opaque. It wouldn't make it more pastel necessarily as much as a titanium white would. So it's a little bit of a lighter white. It's a little bit less strength. Overall, like I said, it's a little bit too gold for me. We'll show you. I'll get into that. This is a diarylide yellow. I guess that's how you say it. Diary. It's not dairy. That's DAI. So it's diarylide yellow. I guess that's how you would do that. And it is basically a very, very warm color. I do not consider that a warm yellow. That is an orange. It's a very, very yellowish orange is what I'd say. That's a light orange. And let's look at what happens when you put that into some water. Let's get a good amount of water down here. And immediately fills up the whole area with that color. It just shoots across just like I put it down. It looks more concentrated than when I put it straight down from here. So it just shoots across the water. That's what it does. It's a pretty color. It's not like a Hansa Yellow Deep or anything like that. It's a orange color. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, no, it looks just like the new Gamboge. And I'm going to, you can't see it in here. Anyway, in the concentrated part of the new Gamboge, yes, it's that color. But the difference is, on new Gamboge, and I'll show you, let me see if I have a swatch. Okay, here are the two next to each other. I just want you to see this. I was messing around with a bunch of different colors. This is the new Gamboge. You see as you get down here, it gets more yellow. You can almost get to a bright yellow down here, but have that orange tint up here. For this one, it's orange and it stays orange all the way out through the mix. So as you get lighter and lighter, it's still that same orange color. This changes colors. I like paints that change colors. You can put down a mass tone and you have one color, and as you get down water and water and water, and then you get a little bit of a different color. I enjoy that. I don't know if you do, but I like that. Okay, this is Quinacridone Gold Deep, which is a beautiful color. This is a quinacridone burnt orange, in my opinion. That's what this color is. I think it looks very, very similar, and I'll get that other swatch out of the Daniel Smith version of that color. Let's get some water down here and see what it does. I can take a guess, but yes, it shoots across, it opens up. You get that halo effect in there. Beautiful. But I am going to come back to this because this is going to change color a little bit. It's going to get a little bit lighter. You put it down, it looks much more orange. It gets a little bit lighter, and I actually enjoy the color that it turns into. It gets a little bit more of a faded brownish orange, which is a color I prefer for this particular color. So let me do that, and then I'll show you compared to the Quinacridone Burnt Orange and Daniel Smith. You'll see. Oh, I suck at this. I didn't go through. Okay, let me step back here. I did it again. So anyway, for this one, there was a semi-opaque. We went through that, but there was no information on whether it was staining or not. I don't understand what that means. Why would you have it say non-applicable for the staining? It is a light fast one. You go over here to the diarylide yellow, and that PY83, that's the exact name what it is. It's a diarylide, you know what the word is. Diarylide yellow, that's it. And it's semi-opaque, and there's no information available for whether it's staining or not. I think it's a little staining. And it has a 1 for light fast, so it's a very, very light fast. This is starting to dry. You see it's starting to get that brownish color. We'll go into that. Like almost like more of a reddish orange, but it's different. I love this color. As a matter of fact, from what I understand, this color is going out of, it is no longer going to be produced. So If you happen to like this color and it looks great to you, then you might want to pick this up. I did that with one of the other ones. I'll show you that later as we get this quinacridone burnt orange here does not look like what a Daniel Smith burnt orange does. But anyway, this one is going away, and I went ahead and picked up 2 more tubes aside from the one that I already have because of how much I love that color. We'll get to that in a minute. But this one here is still a very beautiful color. I love how soft it looks after you put it down after it dries. It just looks very, very soft, and I just love the way that that looks. So this is the quinacridone burnt orange here. It does get that soft look. So after this fully dries, it'll look a little bit deeper than the quinacridone burnt orange from Daniel Smith. I think I like that color much more than this color, but it's just a pretty color. I do like it. I may have to get another tube of it before it's not available anymore. Okay, so this is a PO48, which is a quinacridone burnt orange. That's the color that it is. And from what I understand, it's going away. I don't know how long, when it's going to happen, but it is. It's very transparent. It is staining, and it has a light fast of 2, which means instead of lasting 100 years, it'll last 50 years. To me, that's fine. I don't mind that even a little bit. Okay, the Cad Red Deep. This is a different color than I was expecting it to be, but it's actually, I enjoy it. I think it's a nice color. I really do. At first I looked at it and I said, it's a little bit too, it's too red for me. But when this dries, it shifts. It turns into a cool red as it dries. I've never seen that from a red that looked a little bit more warm and dark, and then it shifts to a little bit more of a cooler red as it dries. You can already start to see it get a little pinkish around the edges. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting color. I do like it. I'm not huge on the cadmium colors, but this one in particular, I think it works very well. I think it's very nice, and I enjoy it, and it spreads pretty well. I like that part of it too. So this is PR108. It's cadmium red. That's what it is. It says it's slightly opaque, and no rating on the staining. Again, I don't know what that is. It's got a 1 for light fast, and this one is granulating, so you should see some granulation in here. I can see it. I don't know if it's already starting to come out over here. I don't know if you can. I'll get a little bit closer a little bit later, maybe just look at some of the granulation on these. The ones that have them. Not many of them do. Well, no, that's not true. A lot of them have granulation. Okay, we'll get later. I'll just zoom in to look at granulation later. But I love how that thing spreads out. That's a beautiful little pattern that it makes, and it's just... that's what I love about this paint. As an abstract artist, this is what I love, because I'm going to be doing a lot of wet into wet, and then it'll give me my lines and all my details. Where am I going to put my pen marks? Right along those edges. That's what I'm going to do. If you've ever seen me do anything before, you know that's how I do it. Okay, we have a quinacridone red here, and that's exactly what this is. Beautiful. It's very similar to the Daniel Smith quinacridone red. As a matter of fact, let me put it right next to it. You can see, well, yeah. Okay, so it's this one right here. So you see in the mass tone, it looks really red. And then as you get down to the watery part, it looks a little bit more pink. Very similar. Of course, this is dry. This is not. When this dries, it'll look more like that. Trust me about that. Here's the dried sample of it. So it looks a little bit more red here than this, but not too much. And as you get watered out, it gets a little bit more pinkish. I did not water this out down here, but you'll see it. All right, let's get some water down here. We'll see how this disperses. Yeah, beautiful color. It is a really pretty color. If you like pinks, I would say go for this one. If you're a floral artist, this is definitely for you. It's also a great mixing color for bright purples. If you use a very cool blue, you'll get some, even a reddish blue. It doesn't matter. You'll get some bright purples on this one, so long as it's not too deep of a blue. Okay, so this PV19 is a quinacridone violet. Most companies will use the quinacridone red as the PV19. I know Daniel Smith does. I know a couple. I think Da Vinci uses this as a quinacridone carmine. I think it is. But again, down below, I'll put that link for all the pigments. That way you can check on them yourself. there was another thing pointed out to me. So every time I talk about this thing, someone points something out. So one of the reasons that people don't use like the cadmiums and things like that, especially if they go out plein air painting, is if they're using traditional brushes and water, they don't want to just dump it back, like dump the water out with all the heavy metals in it. So I understand that. I get that. I understand exactly where you're coming from. You don't want to dump the heavy metals into the ground. I get it. So I don't hardly ever use the regular brush with the thing. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I understand what you're saying. Now you can see here this Cad Red Deep. See how that became cool. It's almost like a violet undertone. A very interesting color. I really like that color. Even though I just was talking about the cadmiums, I know. I just don't tell me I know. I'm a terrible person. Okay, one of my favorite colors from this whole thing is this. Now, just give this a minute to dry. I'm going to see if I can get that a little bit darker up here. Give that a second to dry because that's going to change colors on you. That's going to shift tremendously. Now, I had heard that the QoR watercolors didn't shift as much. Someone said that. They said, oh yeah, the Aquazol, it makes it so there's not as much color shift. There is absolutely a ton of color shift. These two colors especially, they shifted like crazy. This one's going to shift a lot. And I really like the way that this looks. It looks more like a deep red when it dries. You'll see. You know what? It didn't seem to jump as much. Let's see if I can... Maybe it's because I didn't have enough water. That could be a thing. So, yeah, I think that's what it was. I didn't have enough water on the paper. The brush was a little dry on that one. But this does shoot across the page just like everything else. There's no difference in that. Okay, so this is a quinacridone burnt scarlet. That's what PR206 is. This has become defunct. They have completely taken this out of production, and a lot of it has to do with what pigments are available based on the car industry and things like that. They're not going to keep a pigment around for watercolor paint, I'll tell you that. But what they do is, if it's used extensively in car paints and things, they make paint from the paint. You can get the pigment anywhere. But then when they don't use it anymore, there's no demand for it, so it goes away. It's already starting to shift. You'll see, this is a beautiful color. I love this color. The other thing I like about this whole thing is these are colors I've never used before. I don't have in my palette anywhere. Obviously not all of them, but this is, yes, it could be the quinacridone quinacridone burnt orange, just like Daniel Smith, but it's a smoother color. I like this color much more. I don't have anything that looks like that. I don't have anything that looks like that. They're just pretty all around. This is also transparent. It is very staining, and it has a 1 for light fast, so it'll never disappear. I say that it'll never. You can't prove me that it will, because it'll last over 100 years, and I'll be gone. Okay, I've spoken about this one before, but this Venetian red, it's a nice color. I really like the red color here. I like how it. I love how it's so thick up here. This is not transparent at all. It's a very opaque color. You can cover anything with this mass tone. But you can lighten it up a little bit and get a little bit of a lighter color out of it over here. And it looks just as pretty. It's just it's kind of like an Indian red, but it's more red. It's definitely more red than that. And I'll show you. I'll put it side by side with that, and so you can see it. And it shoots across the page. It's beautiful. I absolutely love it. It just shoots across the water. It's I love seeing that in paint. I've said that like 3 or 4 times now in these videos. And this is the beloved PR101, the synthetic iron oxide red. That pigment is used in more paint colors than I've ever seen anything used in my life. It's a wonderful color. I absolutely love it. And let me see if I can get the... So there it is next to the Indian red. The Indian red from Daniel Smith is a little bit more violet, but you can tell they're brother and sister. And very staining, according to what this says, and also very light fast. So it's just a beautiful pigment. I like almost every pigment that's made with that PR 101. I just, any paint that's made with that pigment, I love it. So I'm with a French cerulean here. I don't know why people say these are hard to re-wet. This is some of the easiest paint I've ever seen to re-wet. I have not had trouble with anything. This is wonderful. But I've heard people complain about QoR watercolor, saying it's hard to re-wet once you pour it into pans and whatever. I'm not finding that at all. And that's a beautiful color as well. So I do like the cerulean blues. So this is the French cerulean blue. I like this one instead of the regular cerulean because it leans a little bit more to the green side of a blue, or more to a true blue, let's put it that way. It's definitely more of a cool blue, and I like the cool blues, so that's what I use there. So, and it is a cobalt chromite. It is a cobalt paint. And once you see that chromite, you know it's going to be partially opaque at least. So that's what it is. And it's very staining, and it has a #1 for light fast, very light fast, and it's granulating. So you'll be able to see some granulation in here. And you can put this, when you use this paint, or this kind of paint, and you put that out on the sky and it just granulates all over the sky edge, I think that's amazing. I love that. And I say sky, but it could be anything. It could be for the abstract pieces I do. I love granulating paint in abstract pieces because, again, it gives me some detail where I can put my lines. Okay, this is a cobalt blue. This is from that little travel set, that Urban's travel set. It's supposed to be more of a true blue, but you look at it right away, you see it leans more red than this color here. I don't like it as much. I like cobalt blue. I like it for anything compared to any other, like a French ultramarine or regular ultramarine. I like this color better, but I don't like it as much as this kind of color. So this is my kind of blue. All right, let's see what this does when I put down a little water. And it spreads all around like that. It's just, they all do that. I'm just going to do that on every one of them just so you can see it, but they all do that. I put way too much water down here, so it's just kind of soaked right now, but don't worry about that. Okay, this is an indigo. Now, you did see this from that 6 color set. Beautiful color. I have to have a dark blue, and if I'm going to have one, this is a beautiful one to have. It's just very, very dark. It does have a little bit of like a Prussian blue tint to it. It's a little, much, much different than the Daniel Smith paint there. It's definitely different than that. Oh goodness, look at that. And it's gonna, so this paint is, if you get any QoR color paints, it's going to do that. It touches any other color. Now, this one can resist a little bit because it's the same kind of paint. But if you put it down next to any other kind of paint, it just takes right over. It's a bully. But, you know, that's what it is. You can't change it. It's just, that's what it is. All right, getting ahead of myself again here. This is the cobalt blue. PB28 is cobalt blue. That's the actual color it is, name of the pigment. And it is, if you were not looking at this color, you'd say, yeah, that's a true blue color. It's not cool, it's not warm, it's right in the middle. But once you open it up to a regular, a cooler blue, you see quickly that leans more red. It's still true blue. If you put it next to a reddish blue, it would look cool, but it's fine. Don't worry about that. Semi-transparent, again, because it's the cobalt, so it's a little bit, you know, or semi-opaque, that's what they say. It doesn't matter. Semi-staining, it has an excellent light fast, and it is granulating. Okay, so now you have the phthalo blue in here. This is the green shade. You have the lamp black, which is basically carbon. It's soot is what it is. You have the PV19. This is also PV19. It's a quinacridone violet. Let me get that on the screen. Okay, this is also PV19, a quinacridone violet. For some reason, this is a 1 light fast, and this is only a 2, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's because of the black? No, the black looks like it's an 8 across the board, so or on the blue wool scale, which means it would be a 1 for the ASMT. And the blue is also 1. I don't understand this. So you have 3 pigments here that are light fast 1, you put them together and they become a light fast 2. I don't get that, but whatever. I'm not the professional, they are. And so this is semi-transparent. I think it's fairly transparent. I haven't seen, I guess in mass tone it gets so thick you can't see through it, but really I think for the most part it's well, whatever. It's semi-transparent, very staining, light fast 2, so it lasts 50 years or better, and granulating. So that's another wonderful, that's a dark blue. I love that kind of a dark blue. It's a great color and it has the granulation. I am all for it. All right, let's see what they do with these two. So they have a cobalt turquoise and a cobalt teal. Now I know that the two, one is going to be more green, one's going to be more blue, but for me the turquoise should be more blue and the teal should be more green. That's just how I see it, but maybe I'm wrong. So here's the cobalt turquoise. And their cobalt turquoise is definitely more green than most other turquoise that I've seen. It's definitely more of a green color. Nothing wrong with it. It's a nice color. I like that color. It's just more green than I see. I usually like the more bluish turquoise colors. I might have to add a little cobalt into that, some of the cobalt blue, maybe some of the French cerulean, get that toned a little bit more blue. But it's a pretty color. I like it. I really do. When it dries, it gets a little bit darker, and I do really like that color. There's nothing wrong with it. So again, this is, let's get them on the screen here. So this color here and this color here are the same exact pigment. It's just how it's treated. And so I can see how they're a little bit more of a green blue over here because it's using that cobalt chromite. But it's still, when I say this is the same color, it's really not. This is a completely different color. This is extremely granulating in here. You can already see it start to come out. It's very evident in here. Well, again, we'll zoom in on some of the granulation, but very, very nice granulation in this color. It is what they're saying is opaque because it's the cobalt chromite, and you say chromite and immediately you think it's got to be opaque. No information on lifting. I think you can lift this color pretty good as far as what I remember. I'm not going to do that here because I don't want to mess up my swatches, but you can see. Yeah, I know you want to know. You get the color and try it out. One is light fast, is a light fast 1, so that's wonderful, and granulating, absolutely beautiful. Now let's get right into the cobalt teal, which came in the little sketching set. The urban sketching set came with this color. I'm not really sure why. I find that this is a little bit more to the blue side than what I expected the teal to be. So it's still not what I would consider a turquoise. It's definitely a teal. Let's see if I can put down some water here, see what it's going to do. I have a suspicion. Yeah, it's going to spread. It doesn't spread. It's not as strong tinting strength, so it doesn't spread as evident. But once you let it sit for a second, you see it goes right to the edge. Wow, that looks washed out. I might have to cut back that light a little bit. I don't know how well you're seeing that. Hopefully you see that fine and the light isn't washing that out too much. But anyway, beautiful color. It is like a very light blue compared to this color. There's supposed to be granulation here, but I'm not seeing it as much as I thought I would. So the PG50 is a cobalt titanate green. Again, you're going to have semi-opaque because it's a titanate color. It's semi-transparent, has a 1 light fast rating, and it granulates. And I don't see the granulation as much. This is very light. There's a lot of water in here. I don't see the granulation. I see it, but it's just not as evident as something like this. Well, when we zoom in, you'll see, I'll put these two next to each other. You see it heavily granulating in here. This one, not as much. But for what I understand is their cobalt green is supposed to be one of the most granulating colors, and this is the cobalt blue, and it's very granulating itself. So, okay, now there's sap green. We've looked at this one before in another video. Very pretty color. It's a little different than the other sap green. It's close. It's very close, but I want to say that it's a little bit different. when it dries, let's see how it shifts as it dries. By the way, there's the burnt orange after it dries. That looks like a deep red to me. It does not look like what I first put it down. It looked very kind of like a warm orangey red, but when it dries very dark, like a deep red. Not necessarily a warm red. So, I mean, it is a little bit warm, but I'm just saying it dries more of a deep red than it does a warm red. All right, let's get some water down here and see what this does. And it spreads pretty good. It just kind of shoots to the edge there. I just made bubbles on the paper, but it doesn't matter. Okay, there's the Daniel Smith with the original PO49 and PG7. So that PO49 is no longer available as far as I know. But anyway, this is very interesting, and it's close, very close. But I think when you lighten this up, you can get a little bit more of a yellowish glow behind it than you can with this one. This is still one of my favorite colors as far as the sap green goes, but this is right there. It's a very close second. So this has some colors that I'm not really fond of in it. You know, the PG36 is this phthalo green yellow shade, which makes me throw up into my mouth a little bit when I say it. The PR101 is one of my favorites of all time, but then the PY150 is the nickel azo yellow, which I am not very, I'm not crazy about. Here's a nickel azo yellow from Daniel Smith right here, and see how it's a little brownish and then it gets light. I really do like the lower part of this. I like the brighter yellow here. But this up here, it just looks like it's in the middle, I should say, when you're painting with it. It just gets dirty to me. It looks like a dirty yellow, and I just don't like it for that reason. But this, like I said, mixed together, it doesn't bother me at all. I actually really like the color. I think it's a beautiful color. And I would use it for mixing, definitely, to get some different shades, a little bit darker, maybe something more like an olive green or something like that I could get out of this. You can get a little bit more of a hunter green out of this. You can use this and just tune it either way you want. It is supposed to be fully transparent, and it is very staining and Lightfast 1, so that's wonderful. Okay, this is one of my favorite colors in the set. I absolutely love cobalt green. I didn't have enough water on my brush. Let's get it a little bit darker on the top. Again, one of my favorite colors. It will granulate magnificently as we go. You'll see. Let's just pop that in there. Did I get that on there? Yeah, I did. Okay. So we'll pop that in there. It's a little weak tinting strength-wise, but it's just, I love the color overall. It goes from very thick and then loses color very quickly, but this area right here will granulate so spectacularly. You might as well pay admission to watch this happen, but it's beautiful color. I absolutely love it. And the PG26 is Cobalt Chromite Green. That's what it is. Semi-opaque in this area up here. Well, some of the granulation gets pretty heavy. So I guess if you have something under that granulating area, it does get a little bit opaque. So it's semi-opaque, they say. Again, they're not giving me a rating for whether you can pick it up or not, whether it's very staining or not. One light fast and granulating. The most granulating color, I think, in all of the core line from what I'm told. Okay, we got the transparent brown oxide. Very brilliant color there. Again, huge drying shift on this one. This will dull right down. I'll show you some swatches that I did with it before. But first, let me put this out here. Okay, runs away just like the rest of them, right to the edge of the water. Gives a nice hard color edge on the end. So when I swatched this color before, look how dark it gets here. This gets dark. You can almost substitute one for the other. Now that's not entirely true, but you can. They get very close. So if you do run out of this color, can you use this color? Yes. They're close. They're not exact. This gets a little bit more of a smooth color up in here, like a smooth orange. This gets a little bit more of a darker brown orange, but they're very close. So I cannot get them on the page at the same time, but basically I'm talking about this one here and this one here. When this dries, it'll get a little bit more faded. It'll get a little darker and be less brilliant. When you first put it on there, it has a huge like orange, yellow orange undertone. But it dies out a little bit as it's drying. It's already starting to do that. And you'll see that. Anyway, it's the PR101. It's transparent. It says it's staining. It has a light fast of 1 and granulating. So wonderful. You can already see it when we go through. You'll see the granulation in here is pretty strong. We have the burnt umber is next. So the burnt umber is also very granulating. It's supposed to be. Umber is granulating. Usually burnt umber is granulating. Raw umber is granulating. Okay, and that moves around pretty well. So this is the PBR7, the brown iron oxide. You have it semi-transparent. You have semi-staining, light fast of 1, and granulating. You can definitely see the granulation in this area down here. You can see it all over the place. But definitely a granulating paint, very beautiful. And well, this is a brown that I really like. It's very similar. Let me see if I can show you here. This is when it's dry. It's dry here, and it gets a little bit darker here. Maybe a little bit more, but as it dries, it'll get a little darker. But this is the EF brown iron oxide. It's close. This is a little bit more of a reddish color than this one, but it's close. You can substitute it for like a true brown color. For me, it doesn't lean either way. It doesn't lean more yellow. It doesn't lean more red. It's like a neutral brown, and that's why I like this color. I really do. I think this color is amazing. Of course, next to this color, it looks a lot more, this looks a lot more orange. But believe it or not, I have never tried Van Dyke Brown before. It's never been a color that I've ever tried. This is the first time that I've even used it, and I think it works. It works for what it is. It's a good brown color. It works as a true brown on a palette. It's not as true brown as this. It's a little bit more red leaning, but as it dries, again, there's a color shift that you'll see. And I'm telling you, it's a pretty color. It's a different kind of brown. I'm not used to it, but I do like it. I'm definitely, if I would put another brown on the palette, I might put this one. This is a nice color. Again, another PR101. They're all over the place in every paint company you've ever seen. And it's semi-transparent, it's staining, light fast 1, and granulating. So that's another granulating color. I love granulating colors. It's wonderful. Here's a raw umber. Now, let me tell you a little bit about raw umber. When you first put it down, it looks very yellow. And it can get very dark, very solid color there. But it looks very yellow. When it dries, again, a huge color shift, it mellows out a little bit. It almost looks like an ugly color yellow, brown rather. I would never like to use this color brown. Once it dries, I would definitely use that color brown. And it spreads wonderfully. Now, as this dries and gets a little bit more to the true brown leaning color, it's definitely a little bit more yellow than this one. I guess it leans a little bit that way, but this is basically sepia. If you take sepia, sepia has black added to this. That's all the difference is. But this is the brown iron oxide. It's the same color as this, same pigment rather as this, even though it's slightly different color. But if you mix this with black, you get sepia. Now the difference is, if you mix this color here with that little bit of white, let me show you what that does. That's how I got this color. This is a sepia, which is the same thing as the raw umber, just with a little bit of black in it. But this is a sepia mixed with white gouache, and it's a watercolor. It's the white the sepia watercolor mixed with white gouache, and you can see it gets a little bit stronger here, a little bit more of the darker color here. and it is on a tone paper, so reflecting back is a little bit darker. But I'm telling you that this in here, the colors that are in here, is this is what you get. You get that fawn color. And if you wanted to make it a little bit darker, it's almost like a chocolate color. So if you have like a chocolate lab or something like that, you can get that color with it. It's also a good toning color. If you want to tone something, typically I use the Payne's Gray, which I'm going to be putting here next. But I use the Payne's Gray and the raw umber or the sepia to tone a paint a certain color. If I want it to be darker but a little bit cooler, I use the Payne's Gray. If I want it to be darker and a little warmer, I use the raw umber. That's how I use those two colors. And please, if you have never done that before, try using those two colors that way. So this Payne's Gray gets like black. This is a very dark Payne's Gray, and so I'm going to water this out a little bit here. There you go. It's a very, very, very dark color. And that's wonderful. I use it that way, so I'm very happy about that. And immediately it just takes over everything there. So yeah, it runs pretty good. Okay, let's look at this now. So you have the phthalo blue-green shade, you have the lamp black, you have the quinacridone violet. Where have we seen it before? Right there. This is the exact same pigments, and it had got the too light fast for mixing them together. I don't understand that, but that's just how it is. This color and this color, very different colors, a very deep dark blue, which is wonderful. And then over here, so it could be different mixes. Since it's 3 pigments, I'll give this one a pass. You mix different colors in at different amounts and you get a different color. I get that. But when you have something like this, when you have a PG36 here, you have a PG36 here, and you have completely different colors, that's when they treat it differently. So anyway, this is a really nice Payne's Gray. This dried black up here. I mean, that you can't see anything there. So it says semi-transparent, semi-opaque. That's opaque there. If you had something under there, you could not see it. That's as far as I'm concerned. But then you have it where it's staining as a light fast of 2, which we saw that the same thing the other one had. This would have been a very smooth transition, but I had to dip back in with water and kind of bring it out because it was going to just go black all the way down, and I didn't want to do that. But these are your 2 tinting colors. If you're going to use anything, use these to tint the colors. Don't use... I say don't use. You use whatever you want to use. But if you want something more interesting, use these. You can use black. Don't let anybody tell you can't use black watercolor to do whatever you want to do with it. What I'm saying is if you take the gray, you can tune it a little bit cooler. And if you do the raw umber, you tune it a little bit warmer. And doing that sometimes looks more interesting. It looks more natural. Okay, now this is one that I just bought because I was not getting what I wanted to out of this color. I wanted it to be more orange. It's a good mixing color to get an orange, but I don't really use any kind of warm reds to kind of mix this and get a bright orange. So I needed a regular orange. I love the color orange. I don't know why I never use them on my palette. I don't, but this time I'm going to. So here's a transparent pyrrole orange. And you know, I have the transparent pyrrole orange from Daniel Smith. I do. The difference is that orange is red. So I'll show you. I'll put a couple next to each other. I kind of went into that with that. Don't worry about that. It takes off just fine. Everything looks wonderful. It will go to the edge just like it did because it just barely touched this and the whole thing turned orange. But anyway, so the PO71 is a pyrrole orange. It's a synthetic organic orange. How can it be synthetic organic? You go fish on that one. I have no idea. The idea is this is a very, very strong... It screams orange. If you look at now, this doesn't look so orange next to that, does it? No, it does not. But anyway, this is a beautiful bright orange. This is the Daniel Smith transparent pyrrole orange. See how red it... Well, this is the original formula. I don't know if it's like this anymore. The original formula still had the PO71, but it was red. Like, this is not orange to me. This is a warm red. And I liked the color. It's good if you want to use it as a deep, warm red. But that's it. And if you see, and this is what I'm saying here, you compare it to this one. This is not a so warm as this. This is just a deep red. This is a deep, warm red. So, but you put this here. This is a beautiful orange color. You see how light yellow you get in here, that little light burst of yellow background. It's not like this yellow from the new Gamboge, but it is yellow. It's a little pop of yellow that you see behind the orange, and it's beautiful. It makes it look like it's glowing, and that's what I love about it. Let me go on now to show you. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and we're going to look at some of the granulation, and then I'll show you what I'm doing with my palette. Okay, hopefully you can see that now. Just some beautiful colors. We're going to go through some of the colors now and get to some of the granulate. See, this here, this is a very smooth in here. It's not the same thing as the Daniel Smith version of the quinacridone burnt orange. So you look at that one here. Don't worry about that noise. And then this here is the Daniel Smith version. I love this color. It's a beautiful color. I love how this is. Can you substitute this down here? Almost. Not quite, but almost, if you absolutely had to. It's very, very close, but I really love this color here. This Cad Red Deep is beautiful. See how cool it got? See how it's almost like a violet under there? I love that. When you first put it down, you're looking at it saying, no, that's a red. That's a regular red. No, it turns into a nice, cool violet. I absolutely love that color. Now, let's see. Can you see the granulation in there? I can. I can see all the granulation in here, but then when you come down here, you can definitely see it around there. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but I can see the granulation off the edges of that paint, and definitely up in here. I can see all the granulation up in here. Can you see that? Look, no granulation, right? You can't see the granulation here. You can see it here. Do you see the difference between them? You see the difference between these two? No granulation in here and granulation in here. You can see it, right? People always say, oh, you can't see it on the camera. I can see this on the camera. I'm actually looking at the camera right now saying, yep, I can see this. But anyway, don't worry about me. Now, again, this Quin Burnt Orange, not as cool as this, definitely, but a deep red. Is it more of a red than anything you've seen? Yes. I'm just going to stop here for a second. So when I did this one, I also did this. You can see the granulation a lot more here because there's a lot more water in it. But I can see it there. You're not blind, right? You can see that? Okay. So, but yes, a lot more granulation in here, and it's a beautiful color. I love granulating reds. Look, this is what I wanted the volcano red to be from Schmincke. This is what I wanted it to do. It did not do this. I didn't, it was not strong. I could see some granulation in it. I'm not saying I couldn't see the granulation. I'm saying I wanted a granulating red that I can actually put on and you could see it and see the color, and it was a little bit more thick of a color. You can't, this is what it looked like. It looked like this. That's it. And I didn't want to do that. Okay, I guess I'm just itching for a fight here. But look, this is the Schmincke Volcano Red. Yeah, I can see all the granulation. I have no problem with seeing it. The thing is, this is not a strong color. This is. Now, maybe it just came off the dot very weak. But the other colors didn't. Like, these are full strength. They all came off a dot. I don't have a problem with that. This color sucks. This is the color it needed to be. Right here. It needed to do this. I'm not picking on the Schmincke people. I'm just saying that that color didn't work. The other colors were nice. I have no problem with the other colors. It just, the red, I wanted a nice granulating red. That's what I wanted. And I finally have one. Okay, here's that Venetian red. And it does look red. But if you put it next to, where is it? Alright, if you put it next to that Indian red, even though it's very, very close, you can still see this is more violet. This is more red. But I love this color. And I don't know what anybody else is talking about, but can you see granulation in there? I can. Can you see granulation up here? I can. I don't, it's not granulating. They don't say that this is a granulating color. I say it's granulating. I'm looking at it. I see the granulation. I'm seeing what I would call granulation. It's the same thing as this. It's just up here. I see it. Okay, the French cerulean, I can see the granulation, especially right in this area right here. Hopefully you can as well. I see it a little less down here, but I still see it around here. But this is where I really see it, is right in this area here with a little bit more water. Not in the thicker part here, but down here is a little bit more water. And I do see the granulation here. Here's the cobalt blue. You see the granulation in that? I do. I see the granulation in here. Right on this edge especially, because it's, again, a little bit more water. And I see it right over here. I had someone laughing at me basically for saying that I'm someone using granulating paints and not using enough water. But in the video they were talking about, I had this, I think. So on the bottom, that's all water and just a dot of paint. So there's more water there than anything. Indigo, supposed to be granulating. I see the granulation in here. Do you? I do. Yes, I could water these out more and get more granulation. I know. But look, granulation in here. There's all water down here. I put a dot there. The rest of this is all water. Here's the cobalt turquoise. Again, beautiful granulation in here. You can see it very nicely in this area here. Matter of fact, I can see it almost all the way up to here. Everything under here, I can see all the granulation in here. Very granulating color. And I can definitely see it down in here. Hopefully you can as well. The cobalt teal, it's light. So it's supposed to granulate, but again, there's a lot of water in here. And I don't see as much granulation as the other color. But that's okay. It's not the color. It's not what I was going for that. But you can, does this look more blue to you than this one? Or does it just look like a lighter green? You tell me. You let me know. Okay, that doesn't have granulation. Here's the cobalt green. This is the most granulating color I think this company makes. And you can, if you can't see that, you're blind. That is pure granulating bliss right there. If you like granulating colors, you just went out and bought this one right here. Okay, granulation. I see some granulation down in here. I definitely see it up in here. So hopefully you can as well. Definite granulation in here. And definitely down in here, I see plenty of granulation down in here. Same thing here. I see it more on the bottom here than I do up here. But I definitely see it. You can see it all through here. It's just that it's darker granulation. That's all. There's not as much water here, I know. But you can see it. Umber, yes. Ton of granulation in this area right in here. And then I can see it up through here a little bit. It's hard to see, of course, in the thicker area because it's thicker paint. But I can still see it in here. And I definitely see it in there. And I guess that's it. There's no more granulation in this paint. Alright, so this is what it looks like. The only reason why I put the orange down here and not up here, which is where I would have put it, is right there. But I got this at the end and I had already drawn this all out and I had one spot open. And I said, you know what? I'm going to get that orange paint. There it is. Absolutely love that color. I think I'm going to take this one off of my palette. So let me show you what I'm doing now. Okay, so this is the palette I was going to work from. I enjoy all of those colors I just swatched out, but I wanted to create a set of colors here that I'm going to pick 14. I'm going to take these out. I'm going to rip this thing up. And I'm going to pick 14 colors to put in here as full pans because I love this tin. This is my favorite tin I've ever seen. It only has the one thing here, so it doesn't have the extra flap out here. I'm going to show you what that's for, by the way. This is an old Lucas Aquarelle color pan. But anyway, I'm going to show you what someone asked me, what is this for? I want to show you what the difference is. A lot of people don't know this. I'm just going to stop and do it right now. Okay, look. Just so you know, and by the way, look at all this. Do you see that? That is phthalo green. That's what stained the crap out of this palette. It's the only color really that's stained. You got a little bit of blue up in here, but all the phthalo green, that's what's in here. I hate that color. Anyway, so when you're going to mix a color, you'd put some water here, and then you put some color here, and you mix it right there, and you just have a little well of color right there. It's small. It's not going to drip off. This side is for big washes of color. So you wouldn't just put a little color here, a little color here. You wouldn't do that. You'd just put a lot of water in here and make a big wash on this side. And then these are for individual colors that you're just going to lighten up a little bit with a little bit of water. No big deal. But someone did ask, why do you have what is this one for if you have this one? And a lot of people pull this one off. And I did on that Rosa Gallery set. I took this whole thing off because it kept doing this like all the way up. And this one at least lays flat, which I'm fine with. But anyway, I may take this off anyway because it's a pain to have this whole thing here. But I usually leave this in this side. This is my color chart for these. So I mix over here, which is why this is stained with phthalo green. So anyway, let me get back to this. So I had in here the new Gamboge from Daniel Smith, which I love that color. And I have the Diarylide Yellow here. I was going to try and use this and replace this new Gamboge. And I said, I'm going to put them both in this set. And if I can make do with just this one, I'm going to keep this one in there and get rid of that one. But whatever one comes out, I think it's going to be this one. Because I like that Daniel Smith new Gamboge. I'm fighting every type of urge that I have to have a solid set. I like to separate all of my watercolor. I segregate it like crazy. If Daniel Smith, then that's my Daniel Smith palette. And if I have a Holbein palette, that's my Holbein palette. And my QoR palette, that's my QoR palette. But I'm fighting every urge to do that because I want to just pick the colors that I want. And to do that, I have the Mars Yellow from Daniel Smith, the new Gamboge from Daniel Smith, the Diarylide Yellow from QoR, which I'm keeping one of these. Not both of them are going to stay on this palette. They're both light oranges. It's just, do I need that washed out yellow, that lighter yellow on that I can get from here, or do I not? That's all the difference is. This is the Cad Red Deep from QoR, the Quimbrin Orange from QoR, the Venetian Red from QoR, the Perylene Violet from Daniel Smith. I love that color. That's one of my favorite colors of any paint I've ever tried ever. I know I say I don't use purples at all, but that's the color that I use for purple. I use that color all the time. And a lot of times I'll use that as my red on the palette. I'll use like a dark blue and this color and then maybe that Mars Yellow. And that'll be my 3-color set right there that I use to do something. Absolutely love it. So this is a French Cerulean Blue from QoR, the Indigo from QoR, the Cobalt Turquoise from QoR, the Cobalt Green from QoR, the Perylene Green from Daniel Smith. I think I can get away with using this Cobalt Green and just making it a little bit darker, maybe with some indigo or with a little bit of Payne's Gray, and get this Perylene Green. But if I can't, this is my favorite color green ever in existence. The Daniel Smith Perylene Green. I love that color. So if I don't have to get rid of it, I'm not going to. The Sap Green is more of a convenience green. It gets me a little bit closer to like an olive, or I can tone it a little bit to a hunter green without having to mix a bunch of other colors into the Perylene Green or the Cobalt Green. So I have it on there right now. I may take it off. This is from QoR. This is the Pymentite Genuine from Daniel Smith. Again, one of my favorite colors ever in existence. I don't ever want to take this off of any palette because I absolutely love it. It can get brown and it can get red. It's a reddish brown, but it has like a pink undertone to it. It has like a potter's pink undertone to it, and I love that color. This Quin Gold Deep is quickly becoming a favorite of mine. I'm going to have to go buy an extra couple of tubes of that if it's defunct because I absolutely love that color. You can get close with this color, but not quite. That's a smooth color. I may use that color and take this one off. This transparent brown oxide, I can probably do without that if I have this one. That's the only reason why it's on this palette, is so that I can compare what I'm using and see if I can substitute this one for this one. This one's very available. This one is going away. The Burnt Umber here and the EF Brown Iron Oxide. I love that EF Brown Iron Oxide from Daniel Smith, but that Burnt Umber, I think I can keep that one and not worry about that so much. I have them on there again to test them. I need to come up with 14. So a lot of these are going to come off. Again, I'm just testing. Should I get rid of that one and just use that one? I can do that. I do like that EF brown iron oxide color a little bit more. But if I need a true brown, if I'm gonna get rid of this one, I would like to have this one. So that's all that is. The raw umber and the Payne's gray. I told you how I use them. I use them to tone colors. And right now I have, and these are both QoR here, and the burnt umber is QoR here. So these are all QoR paints. And then I have the lunar black from Daniel Smith, just because I like to add extra granulation into things sometimes. And so I put that on there. I can easily take that off. And I always have a titanium white. This is the M Graham titanium white that I use, the gouache, PW6. But it doesn't have to be them. It could be, I heard Daniel Smith has a great gouache now, so I may get the Daniel Smith titanium white and put it in its place if it's a little bit more transparent. I mean, a little bit more opaque, rather. That's what I'm going for here with this opaqueness. I don't want it to be a transparent white. And then whichever of these colors that comes off, this transparent Pyrrole Orange from QoR is going back on there. So this color will also be on this palette. It'll just be in either this place or this place, but it's going in one of those places. And I have the Mars Yellow on here because I like yellow ochre colors, but this Naples Yellow, I wanted to show you this here. So the Naples Yellow, if you look at these two colors next to each other, this is much more gold than this one. This is a little bit more of a brown with a yellow, and this is more gold, and I don't like it as much as this. It's a little bit less tinting strength. It's fine. I could use it as a substitute, but I just like the Mars Yellow better. I don't even use their yellow ochre color from Daniel Smith. I use the Mars Yellow. It's my favorite color from them, from that kind of color. Right, so let's take another look here. These are the colors we swatched out. I showed you. This is an amazing palette. I don't know what it is. I love the QoR paints now. I have 3 main brands of paint now that I use. Daniel Smith is my standard paint. That is the baseline paint. It's good all around paint. But you could substitute that Daniel Smith with M Graham or with Schminke or with Mayberry or with any of the other, Winsor & Newton is very popular, great company. You can substitute Daniel Smith for any of those colors. But when it comes to interesting and unique colors, I like the Black Days and I like the QoR. So, because they're unique, there's something special about them. The Black Days with the separation and how they do all that, and then the QoR with how well it spreads through the water, and me doing a lot of abstract art, I love that. So it's a unique thing here. Now I will say that new gamboge from Daniel Smith does that, but not all of their colors do it. Some of their colors spread more than others, but not as much as the QoR. The QoR kind of pop all over everything, and I love the way that works. So that's why I wanted to get to use these a little bit more. I don't know. I'm very torn about what I'm gonna put in here. I mean, because these are coming out. They're gonna out of here. Right now, I just have them down in the living room, and I grab them and I take them outside in the backyard, or I take them outside wherever we go. I'll grab them. I keep them handy so I can just grab them and take them with a sketchbook that I have down there. But it's gonna come out. These are coming out. And I really don't think I'm going to use any of the QoR colors that are in here. Any of these colors here, I'm probably not going to use. I'm probably going to just keep them to the side for something else. But this is the Payne's Gray that's already in the other set, so I don't have to worry about that. But the Van Dyke Brown was good. You can see it here. It's a little bit more reddish of a brown, maybe a little bit more stronger of a brown. This is a little bit more yellow, but I think I like the Van Dyke Brown. It's a beautiful color. But the way that I'm using the browns, this is just a little bit easier for me to use, especially if I have some other more orange browns already in the set. If that's what I have, I have something like this, I have something like this, which again, one of these two is going to come off that palette. So, but anyway, so that's a whole lot of information, and probably only half of it you even cared about, and even half of that is what actually mattered to you. So anyway, thumbs up the video if you're going to swatch out your colors and try to fit them into a different pan that they don't belong into, with full pans instead of half pans, and you're gonna try and test things. I don't know what you're doing anymore. You change your mind so much, I never know what you're doing. But if you want to blame anyone for this whole thing, you blame these people that are popping up on the screen now. They're the ones to blame. They're the ones who fund this whole ridiculous avenue that I'm going down. All right, here we go. If you would like to join our community, go to illustrationsbypete.com. You can come in, you can put your own artwork on the site and promote it. You can find some inspiration in the free reference photos. You can just use them however you want in your artwork. You do not need to credit me. Or you can come into the forums and talk to some people and maybe give some advice and maybe find a little bit of information that helps you. So come check us out. All right, that's about it for me. I'm going to go. I'll see you in the next one.